deck. Originally a Jeff Hoagland creation. We saw Jeff a couple of years ago with this deck, but now we see it in the hands of Tom Keating, and it's been an impressive display. He's beaten Dylan Donegan when he was 7-1. He beat Reed Duke to keep his top 8 dreams alive, and now he's just knocked out Chris Anderson, and maybe gonna knock out Ross Merriam.
Yep. 4-color non-blue control, also often referred to jokingly as lost a bet control. But Keating has looked great on camera so far. Beating a lot of very good players, a wide array of matchups. And now, just hoping to draw Chalice of the Void a couple times.
Merriam does know what he's up against here. Players have access to each other's deck lists. And now we are underway with a polluted Delta to start things up.
Coast is clear. Mox Diamond and land.
There's a Bayou. Chalice for 0.
Wow. And Ross elected not to play the Lotus Petal in his opening hand. I'm not sure if this line of play was necessarily on his radar.
That means Lotus Petals, Lion's Eye Diamonds, out the window. Probe here for Merriam. See what Keating's working with. You got a Dark Confidant. Let's make it 2 of those. Abrupt Decay. And a couple of lands here in Taiga, Scrubland, and Grove of the Burn Willows.
Chalice on 0 is pretty rough for Storm. Not only can you not play the cards you just alluded to, but because of that, it trips up Infernal Tutor. It's harder to get your hand empty. Usually you're leaning on Lion's Eye Diamond, or at least the ability just to dump everything out of your hand. And if you can't do that, well, things get a little bit more challenging.
Ross going to play a Brainstorm here. Going to search for a basic island to do so. So 3 cards coming here for Merriam. 2 will be going back. And I imagine the Lion's Eye Diamond and the Lotus Petal has some interest in going back on top of the deck.
I think Ross has found a therapy as well, so I would assume that he will be shortly therapying away those Dark Confidants.
Might be time for those to go. Two cards going to go back here for Merriam. You see the Lion's Eye Diamond in the grip. And the Lotus Petal. Pretty easy ones to put back, I think.
This feels pretty straightforward to me.
There's a Bloodstained Mire. Sacrifice that. And now here's Cabal Therapy. And that'll help take care of the Dark Confidants. And this will make Keating's hand look very regular, I'd say.
It's got nothing going on. This is the potential disaster state for Keating, is if he just has nothing in play. Ross has all the time in the world to sculpt a perfect hand.
And Ross is actively searched up basics too.
Man, Chalice for 0 is a good start, but without backed up by more pressure or discard, it's only a matter of time. Ross still gets to cantrip, still gets to fix his hand.
Looks like you might see a Ponder. And we do. Now, Merriam knows exactly what Keating's working with. Outside of 1 card, the mystery card actually is a Wasteland. So it's Abrupt Decay and a couple of lands over there for Tom Keating. Merriam going to keep a Ponder. We'll take another Ponder. And now I'll sacrifice that Misty Rainforest. Another island.
You have 2 island, 1 swamp in the list, so this is all the basics.
Deck's looking pretty good against Wasteland right now. There is Ponder. Let's see where those 3 cards are going to go.
Looks like quite a few rituals inside that top 3 there.
Looks like he's going to stick with that. Pass the turn back. Cabal Ritual is what he's found. Graveyard stocked and loaded. Threshold not going to be a problem.
And he's got Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, and Dark Petition. So unless King does something awesome this turn, I believe we're going to see Ross go for the kill on his next turn.
There's a Taiga. There's another Reliquary, and that's pretty good. but it's pretty slow. And Ross has free will right now. He knows what he's playing against. Again, players get access to each other's deck list. Another Dark Ritual was the draw. So assuming that Merriam can win this turn, and he can go absolutely nuts, he's got to do a little bit of math because, again, he's got to work around the fact that Lion's Eye Diamond is not going to work.
Yep.
And that means Infernal Tutor is not going to be as good.
I suspect that Ross has a path here for a bunch of rituals into Dark Petition, into Past in Flames, into re-up on all the rituals, into re-up into the Dark Petition, into go get tendrils and kill you.
That'll work just fine then.
I'm starting to see the lines.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you this deck. Throw away
starting to feel it.
Throw away the truth.
The fumes.
Get you a Storm deck. Here's Dark Petition. Spell count up to 4. You said Past in Flames. Let's see if you're right. Get you an article series on Star City called Playing Storm with Patrick.
Yep. Playing Storm. What's my resume? Have never played a game with it in a sanctioned tournament, or even a pickup game, most likely.
Oh, that's fine.
But I've been covering it for a full weekend. I'm starting to see the patterns, you know?
One whole weekend. Very nice.
Did I call it or did I call it?
I think you called it.
Yeah, okay.
Here's the Cabal Ritual. Bunch of mana. There is Dark Petition. Even more, man. Dark Petition's awesome to add in this deck. It's such a good one-of.
Yeah. I think Caleb on the other side of the top 4, he's got 2 copies. 2 is a little bit too much for me because then it starts interfering with ad nauseum too regularly, but 1 seems pretty great.
Tendrils of Agony. Storm count is now 10. And that is going to do it. Ross Merriam's going to win game number 1 here over Tom Keating. Storm very quickly up a game here over Punishing Abzan, as these players will go to the sideboard. Now, Tom does have some useful options here in the board, and given his use of Mox Diamond, he can do something like play Athalia, Garden of Thraben, as fast as turn 1. Thoughtseize is nice. 3 Leyline to the Void. They could play a role. You also find Containment Priest, either Sworn Canonist, Reclamation Sage, Golgari Charm, Toxic Deluge, Engineered Plague, Garrett Relentless, and a Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, and the anti-combo cards that you all mentioned I think are good here. Leylines, Thoughtseizes, Thalias, and Aethersworn Canonist all seem like big upgrades here. King can get away from some of his slower cards, some of his creature removal, and just bring in more dedicated anti-combo cards.
For Merriam, he's working with 3 Abrupt Decays, 3 Carpet of Flowers, 2 Xantid Swarm, 2 Chain of Vapor, 2 Dread of Night, a Massacre, an Empty the Warrens, and a Tropical Island.
So I can get behind some mixture of Abrupt Decay, Chain of Vapor, and Massacre. I don't think he wants to go too heavy on the sideboarding because Keating's also bringing in discard spells, so you can only dilute the deck too much. But he wants to be able to interact with various hate bears, and some mixture of those cards lets him do that.
Well, those are the options there for both players. And as they do get ready here for game number 2, we'll talk about the Fall Creature Collection here with Star City Games, where we've taken some of our game night favorites, Patrick. We put them on playmats, sleeves, and player bundles.
Yeah, the Fall Creature Collection is here. You see the hippo, the otter, and the reindeer, along with Penguillian and Click, all available on playmats, sleeves, and player bundles at StarCityGames.com/Creature Collection, or head over to our dealer booth at any of our opens or any Grand Prix that we're at.
For Ross Merriam, number 8 on our Season 4 leaderboard. A Players' Championship is a goal of his this year, just like it was a goal of his last year. And he made a deep run into that tournament. It was a lot of fun watching him play. One of the best matches all year on the Open Series in 2014 was him against Reed Duke at that Players' Championship. And hopefully we can see him duplicate that and some matches like that, and maybe a little bit more success for him in the Players' Championship this year, assuming that he qualifies.
He's doing some good work here. In the semifinals, it's a minimum 15 points. It's a huge boost, catapults him up the standings. By no means a lock, but this is a big step forward him to try to get to the Players' Championship.
2 invitational top 8s, 14 Open Series top 8s. We're going to have to change that. This is number 15 with 2 wins, potentially a 3rd one on the way. 2 Grand Prix top 8s this year as well in Cleveland and a Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth for Ross. So it's been a banner year, that's in 2015. It feels like this year he's made a leap.
Yes.
Not a huge one, but a leap.
Invitational top 8, 2 Grand Prix top 8s, likely to be in the Players' Championship. It's a very solid year of Magic.
And with how much Magic he's been playing, and just to see the evolution of him as a player, it's been fun to watch. You know, I remember that loss in the finals against Daryl Ayers in Philadelphia when Ross kind of picked up Storm for the first time. He was a little bit frustrated by that. And then you see a couple months later when we went to Cleveland for the Open Series where he beat Gerard Fabiano in the semifinals in a very important match at that time, and then ended up closing it out with Bant Heroic and getting a second Open Series win there. And kind of the relief, as that was actually his first time playing Bant Heroic in a big tournament like that. So all of a sudden, you see kind of the change in dynamic, a heartbreaking loss in the finals, and then winning a tournament, and now it kind of parlayed that in a Grand Prix top eights, and lost in the finals to Shuya Nakamura at Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth. But, you know, that happens to most.
No shame in that loss.
Now up a game here in the semifinals, looking to make it on to the finals, and we could have a Storm Mir in the finals, which will be pretty interesting.
Fast, at least. I don't know. Arguable how interesting the games are.
Well, it wasn't too fast last time we watched it between Merriam and Hawkins.
Although, interesting is already a word that
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Dubious utility.
It serves a role. It can mean many things.
That's why I question its value as a word.
Ah, I see.
It's very interesting. What does that even mean?
On the other side of the bracket, Caleb Sherry is playing Storm right now against Christopher Stitson, who is playing Miracles. For Stitson, he just did take down Samuel Rockus. Rockus, former Open Series champion. We were in Syracuse last year. It was actually a pretty impressive display. I've never seen Stitson before.
Yes, and that was quite a complicated second game that Stitson navigated very well. Needed to have it all. A couple critical turns there, but had it all. Played pretty well, and now trying to get through the semifinals.
For Scherer, number 17 on our Open Series leaderboard. Has been stuck at number 17 and quite a bit, has Caleb. But a win here will actually finally get him out of that, get him to 2-bye territory, which I'm sure he would like in case we do see him at Denver. And I have a feeling we'll see him at that Season 4 Invitational in 2 weeks in Las Vegas.
Denver and Las Vegas also so close. Once you get the 2 byes, you know.
Might as well just go to both.
Why not go?
Both players getting the ability to take a look at each other's deck list here to sideboard accordingly. Merriam with a pretty straightforward win there. The Chalice on 0 can really mess up some draws from Storm, but Ross was able to pilot through that pretty easily, really based off the strength of Dark Petition, as you mentioned.
And I understand Keating's logic there because his hand was glutted with 2s. You know, he wanted to be able to play Dark Confidant 2, probably Dark Confidant 3, hopefully find some more disruption. But Ross was able to play through the Chalice pretty easily by simply shuffling away the 0s that he had in his hand. He had a lot of time after taking the Dark Confidants out of Keating's hand to assemble a hand. And with Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, he was able to win the game fairly easily.
Well, Keating will be on the play here. And again, he does have some things that really do mess up Merriam in his sideboard. Again, Thalia, perfect thing to play on turn 1. Really screws up with Storm. Chalice on 1, better than Chalice on 0 in the matchup.
Yes.
I think that one's pretty obvious. Thoughtseize can be pretty helpful here. Dark Confidant can get some draws going. So there are some useful things for Keating to do. It does revolve a lot around Mox Diamond, or at least it feels that way.
The problem, though, is still that Keating's clock is pretty slow. Post-board, Ross gets access to Abrupt Decay to be able to handle Chalice, plus some of the Hate Beers you just mentioned, and 1 Massacre that can break up a lot of stuff. So Keating needs to make sure he's backing everything up with pressure, because if he's just sitting back on his hands, Ross has a couple cards in his deck that allow him to break out of these various soft locks.
Well, we got an update here for you. Caleb Scherer with Storm does win game number 1 here over Christopher Stitson playing Miracles. And, you know, you mentioned this a little bit earlier in the broadcast, and I kind of feel this way too. I think a lot of people think that Miracles is a pretty heavy favorite against Storm. That doesn't appear to be the case.
I disagree with that assessment. I mean, if you're on the play and you go top into counterbalance, that's great. And you're going to win a lot of games that way. But you don't always have that draw, and you have so many cards in your deck game 1 that are just nonsense. You have Swords, Plowshares, Terminus, Entreat the Angels, a lot of cards that just don't carry their weight. And unless you're bringing a lot in the sideboarded games, I think the deficit you're in game 1 is going to be too much to overcome a good percentage of the time.
Well, Merriam good to go. Keating going to finish shuffling up, and now it'll be game number 2 on the way here. If you are just joining us, however, it's Senator Phillips and Patrick Sullivan here from New Jersey, your hometown. I have no negative words to say.
Not quite my hometown. This is my
your
home
home
area.
state. Excuse me.
Home state for sure, and home area. This was the area, not quite this tournament center, but very close by, where I played in my first Gray Matter $1,000 tournaments, sort of the 1995 equivalent of IQs, I suppose, run by one Brian David Marshall, now Pro Tour historian, commentator for the Pro Tour. Won my first PTQ hotel up the road.
Very nice.
Some history here for me.
You're pretty proud of me. No New Jersey bashing all weekend.
You would just be lying. With the matches we watched, all just the random ne'er-do-wells stumbling by the booth, people from New York, New Jersey, and Philly, who are just awesome people we don't get to see very frequently.
Well, it's not hard for me to make fun of this place.
I know it's not. It's not hard, but it's just dishonest.
I just want to make sure it's clear. It's not hard for me to do. I think Tom's got a good draw.
Well, this is a good opening here. Turn one ley line's problematic. And if this is a chalice on one, I believe Ross's hand is basically nothing but cantrips and a chain of vapor. So that's going to play. Find out in a moment.
Yeah. Well, with how quickly Tom is moving with the ley line into the Mox, into the crack my fetch, I would be horrified if I was Ross right now. I'd be hoping it's Dark Confidant.
Yes.
Which is not a good thing to hope for.
Still a very good opening.
Yeah. Of your 2-mana spells that are going to destroy me, please let it be Dark Confidant, not Thalia or Chalice on one. Let's see what it's going to be here for Tom. Note in his last match against Chris Anderson, couldn't find ley line. Yeah, oh goodness. This is a
okay.
Yeah, this is a keepable hand.
So now Ross's path has to be Abrupt Decay to get the Chalice off the table. Then hopefully he can go off in a way that doesn't require his graveyard and he can ignore ley line, or he can chain a or he can chain a vein for the ley line. This is getting harder. However,
hey, Wasteland, your favorite. And there's the clock in Dryad Arbor.
Countdown.
There is the clock.
T minus 20 turns.
Well, it's getting tough.
It's a tough start here for Merriam.
Yeah. Ross will discard Gataxian Pro, pass the turn back. We're going over to Keating. Hiya! Merriam down to 19. Another Mox. Discard Grove. Just pass the turn back. Merriam with Volcanic Island. Infernal Tutor. Gonna go get a light. Oh, all right. He's fighting back.
Okay.
The man has a plan. That's for sure. Can't go off through Passive Flames. Can't play 1-mana spells right now. But a second LED, that's what he's looking for. And you can see Ross's hand right now. A couple copies of Brainstorm over there. Some other nonsense. He might have some interest in playing at least one of these LEDs, maybe two, because of Chalice on 0.
Yep. He doesn't have to worry about discard because there's a Chalice on 1.
Bang. Merriam down to 18. Dark Confidant.
Good draw.
That is a good draw. Now, Keating has 1 card left in his hand. No clue what it is. Merriam will draw a card. Ah, the Tendrils, I think. That's a roundabout way to do it, maybe.
Tendrils is not necessarily a bad draw here. It's going to be hard for Ross to assemble enough mana to do Infernal Tutor type of stuff. He might be able to just, especially with Dark Confidant in play now, there's a route for him to just kind of do Tendrils for a couple points.
Here's a Brainstorm. Whammy. Gotta try.
Yeah.
Gotta try. It's his Chalice. I love it. Oh, boy.
This is actually good news for Ross that card was flipped over. He's got a ton of dead weight in his hand. He's discarding hand size anyway. And I think his path here is now getting a lot harder here. What I was going to say is the path here involves just Tendrils for 4 or 5 after Ross has taken a lot of Dark Confidant hits.
Okay. All right, here comes the beatdowns. All right, so I can see the plan here a little bit. It's going to be, Dark Ritual's not going to help. It's going to be real hard, but I think he's got to find some lands and just do something maybe like LED Tendrils you for 6. Yeah. Like something like that. It's going to be real tough, though. Oh, goodness. Thalia. Keating down to 14. Here comes Dark Confidant and Dryad Arbor. Merriam down to 12. Cycle to Barronmore. Draw a card. There's Thalia. Liliana going up. This is a pretty tight lock. Sylvan Library down. Ross will draw. Cabal Ritual counts for something, except there's no graveyard.
Yeah, it's worth a mana and one of the storm count.
But he can't cast it because Thalia's out there.
It's worth nothing.
Yeah. If he finds a way out of this, I'm going to be impressed. What's this card? Life in the Loam. That can get back a Wasteland. Beatdowns, puts you to 7. Liliana's going up. See what Merriam wants to discard now. Looks like he's going to discard Chain of Vapor. Discards, okay, now the Reliquary presents lethal. Draw a card. Lotus Petal.
Oh, it's time to start casting some zeros and see if Keating points at his chalice.
Yep, I think that's where we're at. The tough thing, yeah. The other thing that the problem with that is that the zeros cost a mana.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
So he's like soft locked every which way that he can't even get like creative with it and hope that like, oh, maybe he doesn't like trigger his chalice or anything because all of his spells just cost mana too.
Sideboard seems good here for Keating. It's a good mixture of cards to have.
Not a bad keep there, game 2. Turn 1 chalice for 1 Leyline, you're up. Well, here's the benefit of having the higher seed. You get to play first game 3.
Yes, and Ross's deck is capable of killing on the first turn, and Keating can't really do anything about that unless he has Leyline, and that somehow matters.
Even if there is a Leyline, he can still kill through turn 1. So that was a beaten, though. That was a beaten. And as we mentioned when we looked at Tom's sideboard, you can see it right now. Those Leylines, Thoughtseize, Thalia, Canonist, maybe even Reclamation Sage. A lot of good options on the board.
Yes. Leyline's a tricky enough card to fight through. You have the chalices, and then discard plus hate bears. It's a lot of different angles of attack. Like I said before, I suspect Ross's sideboard here is the Abrupt Decays and the Massacre and the Chain of Vapors. Although it's possible with Abrupt Decay and Dread of Night in the, Abrupt Decay and Chain of Vapor in the deck, it's possible Ross feels like he shouldn't bring in the Massacre because Keating doesn't really have all that many creatures, but he still needs to have an answer to Thalia and either Sworn Canonist, so I suspect all those cards are in.
These players are going to shuffle up here for game number 3. We'll be underway here in just a moment. See if Ross Merriam is going to keep his opening 7 as he's going to be on the play. In the meantime, we're talking the SCG newsletter, a place where you can find Ross Merriam, Michael Majors, and a bevy of other Star City's finest, as it's your source for Magic the Gathering news.
All the best content going on here about the website and the Open Series, with information about the Open Series, including a selected match of the week to watch, exclusive deck lists and advice from many of our columnists, an exclusive cardboard crack comic, and best of all, sign up is free over at starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Free to sign up for. You sit on the internet all day. Just
doing it anyway. You're already there.
Just do it.
It's an email a week, roughly.
What's interesting here, some players would like you to take the Doomsday Storm Challenge. Your thoughts?
No.
Too much for you?
It's just a worse version of the deck for the sake of being fancy, which is not into things that are worse, nor am I into being fancy. So it's a non-starter.
I want to believe that the Doomsday deck is good because it's a really powerful card, but it's just too complicated for people to wrap their head around.
I don't feel like when I'm watching Ross and Caleb and our other Storm pilots play this deck that they're at an absence for power. They're winning on turn 2 quite a bit. They're winning on turn 1 a good percentage of the time. They're fighting through multiple counter spells and winning on the 3rd turn. Doesn't really seem to be like the deck is lacking power. Like that's a reason to do something different.
You might be right. Maybe.
I just don't want a Doomsday in my opening hand when I can just have a Preordain instead, you know?
Yeah, I kind of want to Doomsday my opening hand.
No, I understand the charm of having a Doomsday instead. I'm just saying, strictly in terms of winning and losing matches, probably rather just have a Preordain.
Can there be a Doomsday sideboard plan? Is that it? Did I just break the format? Probably not.
For what matchup?
I don't know. Don't ask me a question like that.
Okay.
Just saying, is there one? Let's get to matchup analysis later. Can a Doomsday sideboard plan be done? Get the Shelldock Isle, go get the Emrakul, the Doomsdays.
I'm sure. I mean, many of these pieces, the cantrips and the rituals have to overlap. I'm sure you could do it if you wanted to.
All right. Now we're talking. So what I'll do is I'll build you a Storm deck, and I'll just put the Doomsday sideboard plan in, and then you can choose when you want to take the challenge.
That's fine because I actually advocate sideboarding very little, if at all, with Storm, so that I could just play the same 60 the whole way through.
Game 3 between Scherer and Stitson. Going to begin here in just a moment, as Stitson was able to tie things up with Miracles. Scherer playing Storm. If we have time to jump that way, we will. As you now see Joe Lissette getting his bird on.
Some rooting interest here.
Those two did compete at the Players' Championship last year. Lissette last year did win the Season 3 Points Championship. Merriam taking a long look at this opener.
Such a rough deck to mulligan against, you know, with the way the sideboard is.
Especially with what happened in the last game too. You know, you saw all of the cards and how hard they're all to beat. Thalia, Canonist, Leyline, Chalice. I think he said he's going to keep. Keating going to take a mulligan. We'll see if Keating can find a better 6. The thing is, I think he's just going to take mulligans here anyway because he's just got some high leverage cards to find.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to find his high impact cards because his normal draws don't do a whole lot, and his sideboard cards have a lot of value. So I would mulligan very aggressively in Keating's seat. And Keating, to his credit, has mulligan very aggressively with his deck. He went to 5 twice against Chris. I think he took some mulligans in the Swiss round that we covered. So he's not adverse to taking mulligans. And this matchup, probably more than any other he's played thus far, he's got to be on the hunt for the half dozen or so cards he has that really matters.
Oh, baby. Some players have chimed in with the big plan. My Doomsday plan is to fruition here. Jarvis Yu, Grand Prix champion. I'll listen to anything you have to say. Let's see what we got here. Well, a lot of players chiming in with it used to be 4 Doomsdays, a Shelldock Isle, Emrakul, and the sideboard to get past Counterbalance.
Well, now you can play with Abrupt Decay and get around Counterbalance.
Can you?
Yes. Ross has 3 of them in his sideboard, in fact. So.
Yeah, apparently we have I don't want to butcher his name. Jan van der Weg. DZYL, the streamer.
Yes.
Yeah. He said that Doomsday sideboard used to be a thing in Storm. Mostly be Counterbalance. I get Abrupt Decay. I get it. Okay? But it's about being cool.
Yeah, and before Abrupt Decay, that's a fine thing to do. Totally fine with it.
There's also a Lab Maniac and a Chromatic Sphere, sure. Yeah, I think I broke it. It looks like apparently there's a Cloud of Fairies involved. Are you interested now?
To untap the Shelldock Isle to...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, now we got you. Now we got you on board.
Yeah, definitely still more cool than good at this point. Just going to point to Abrupt Decay. It's a way to get around Counterbalance.
There's a lot of moving pieces to this.
Yep.
Can we win turn 1 with the Doomsday package? Can we just Dark Ritual in the Doomsday? Do they just die? Probably not, but
I think you need more going on than just that, right?
I mean,
Because they're not in your hand. It's just your deck now, right?
oh yeah, sure. Okay, that's probably not it. It's fine. I'm just asking. Again, I'm not a Doomsday expert. All I'm saying is there's probably a Doomsday deck out there, and we're all, as a community, not smart enough to find it because it's too complicated.
Just don't think the incentive is very high. But again, Ross and Caleb, good chance they're meeting in the finals. They've been killing very early on in the game.
Maybe Doomsday gives you a little more resiliency than you think. That's probably not true. Misty Rainforest here for Merriam to start game 3.
I don't know. Once your deck has Cloud of Fairies and Shell Dock Isle and an Emrakul in it, I don't know if it's really giving you resistance against discard.
Discard the Emrakul, shuffle it all back in.
Yep.
Have you considered that option?
Or they select your Dark Ritual and then you have an Emrakul in your hand. Instead of, again, are any of these cards better than just a preordained? Ross is only playing 2. That's how many. It's not over the preordained bar.
It's tough to say. It's tough to say. Ross going to shuffle with Ponder here. Patrick ruining my ideas. Mystery card coming. Infernal Tutor. Pass that turn back over to Keating. Always got to be scared of what Tom's capable of on turn 1. If it involves Mox Diamond, it could get ugly. He'll start with Windswept Teeth and just pass the turn back. If you're Ross, that's a sigh of relief.
Yep. I remember when Keating passes the turn, there's nothing going on.
Yep.
Everything that he's doing is on his own main phase, so.
That's a nice feeling, too, when you're playing, so we don't have to worry about a single thing.
Yep.
Merriam with land number 2. It looks like it's going to be a Delta. And we saw in the first game he actively searched up basics. We'll probably see that in this game, too.
Yep.
He's just going to pass the turn back. Over to Tom Keating, we're going to go. He's going to sacrifice some Windswept Teeth on Merriam's end step. Scrubland.
Correct.
Thank you. That in Savannah, we have to have a real talk about that if they could fix it, which they can't.
Yeah, I mean, you needed to start this conversation about 25 years ago. You really wanted to do something about the art there. Ship's kind of sailed. They are printing an alpha, so it's a little late.
It's like those creatures from those devoid creatures from Grand Prix Atlanta.
Right.
All over again.
Yep.
Miststrider, Murky Guy, that's his name. It's just too much. They were too hard to tell the difference between. They all look the same from here. Keating will draw. There's a Bayou. Bum bum. Chalice on 1. Trouble's here.
And Ross's hand looked like it might have been able to go off this coming turn. But now Chalice for 1 makes it a lot more complicated.
So what I think Ross's plan was this coming turn was play Infernal Tutor, get Dark Ritual, cast double Dark Ritual, play Ad Nauseam, go from there. His hand got blown up because now he's got Dark Ritual in his hand, and he has, here's a green, oh boy, I think this is Teague.
Even on 5 cards, you can feel the noose starting to tighten a little bit here.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be Gaddock Teague. Ross has Chain of Vapor too, but again, Chalice is going to mess that up. Now, here's Lotus Petal. Don't know how that works its way into the equation. Nope, never mind. I was going to say for what it's worth, he could cast a value Ad Nauseam, but that's off the table now. Tendrils that's in his hand is off the table now.
Can't massacre this off the table.
Nope.
Again, the Chain of Vapor shut off. So it needs to be something like Abrupt Decay on the Chalice, and then Chain of Vapor on Teague, and then go from there.
Yep. Now, Teague isn't the fastest clock. We're also got some draw steps here, but the Ponders, the Brainstorms, the Preordains, they're off the table.
And Keating's got other stuff in his deck. I mean,
Yep.
This is not the end of the road as far as anti-storm cards go.
Now, Merriam's hand it's basically non-functional at this point. He's not going to play Tendrils, and Infernal Tutor can't find anything. So it's on him to draw Abrupt Decay, it appears. Abrupt Decay, as you mentioned, does unlock everything.
Yeah.
Kill the Chalice, bounce a Gaddock Teague, have a bunch of fun. Probably dies if Tom probably dies if he draws Abrupt Decay.
Right. He may, in fact, die not the next turn, but that turn.
Yeah. Dark Confidant. Merriam will draw Abrupt Decay.
All right, well, now we'll find out. I mean, it's possible Ross needs to say go and then do all this. But his hand, it is not impossible for him to have it all rolled up right now.
I'd be scared if I was Merriam, simply because, you know, my opponent gets to draw 2 cards, and Keating's deck is such a high density of relevant stuff after sideboard.
Well, he can pass the turn, and there are some things that are shut off right now because of the Teague and the Chalice. Keating can't cast a Thoughtseize.
Yep.
He can't cast a Green Sun Zenith.
Yep.
He can't cast Leyline of the Void.
Also true.
So he can kind of pass. There's only so many cards that Keating can draw that are really destructive for Merriam in this spot. Blow up everything or bounce everything, and then try to win the game the next turn. And Keating might help a little bit because the Dark Confidant might reveal something a little bit on the expensive side, and then you might be able to just win kind of naturally via Tendrils.
I think what we might see Ross do, there's a chance he can play, there's a chance where we might see him just cast Infernal Tutor, reveal Dark Ritual, get Ritual, then he can cast Abrupt Decay, kill, nope, he can't do all that. I think he might just want to play Infernal Tutor, get Dark Ritual, and then just pass.
I think he's going to take the other route here of just say go. And if he commits the Infernal Tutor to anything, then things might get a little haywire. It's possible, for example, like imagine Keating adds another piece of disruption to the table. If the clock's slow enough, Ross might go Infernal Tutor for Abrupt Decay, pass, try to unlock multiple things, then go for the kill.
Okay.
But if this is all that Keating has, Merriam doesn't need to make a move right now. His hand's probably good enough to go off next turn.
Ross wants to see Tom Keating play like Knight of the Reliquary.
Right.
Yeah, cast that. That's what he wants to see on the other side of the table. It's not oftentimes you see someone say that in Legacy.
But I like the patience here from Ross. A lot of Keating's ancillary hate cards can't be added to the table right now because of the other hate cards in play.
It's bad news.
That is not great. That's one of the ones he can add.
Yeah. Now, there are draws that you can get with this deck where you can push through Thalia, because this deck can make a boatload of mana, so there are draws. But this now works its way into the situation that you just talked about, where it might be Infernal Tutor for Abrupt Decay, pass, decay something, pass, untap, decay, bounce, all that stuff. Like, we're working our, and also now all that line of play is also more expensive now.
Well, the problem now is Ross is also at 13 falling to 12. This is a two-turn clock. So he doesn't really have the luxury right now of pass, because he just dies into attacks.
Yep.
So I think he's got to make a move here. My best guess is honestly, he's going to have to try to bounce Teague and then win through Thalia.
That sounds fun.
Depending on how many rituals he has, it may not even be that challenging. He is working with a lot of mana right now. I think it's impossible for him to win the game with Teague on the table. So that just has to go. Thalia is really problematic, obviously, but if his hand's the right way, something he can play through.
I can't imagine a taxing probe is what the doctor ordered. This is going to be interesting. We're going to see exactly how much experience Ross has with this deck. Because this is a hard thing to work your way through.
And now the other potential line to play in all of this is Infernal Tutor for Chain of Vapor. Reveal Chain of Vapor, show Chain of Vapor, pass, bounce both your stuff, and go.
Okay.
But Thalia makes that pretty complicated because Ross either has to do this over the course of 2 turns or lose his Lotus Petal to be able to do it more efficiently.
Merriam going to take a long look at this hand, try to figure out the avenue to victory. And I assume there's some way in there, but I sure as heck don't know what it is. I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's real hard.
I mean, Ross does have 2 copies of Chain of Vapor in the deck. I think he's going to Infernal Tutor for Chain here.
All right.
So keep this in mind. He falls to 6 here from the attack.
Yep.
Let's imagine Keating doesn't play anything else that matters on the table. And a turn, Ross bounces the Thalia, untaps, bounces Teague. He's going into his turn then. He's down to 3 mana, but the board's clear. 3 mana is not a horrible spot to go off from, assuming his hand is loaded with enough rituals. Unfortunately, this all falls apart if Keating has any other piece of problematic card to add to the table.
Yep.
He's got a lot of them in his deck. You know, something, Chalice at this point is not something Ross can beat. His position's already tenuous enough. But if this is all that Keating's got, and Ross's hand is good enough, he can win. He can still win next turn.
He's got to take the 6. He's going to fall down to 6. Delta will put him down to 5. Maybe Dark Petition is a way to make this work. Who knows? Feels like LED might be involved here somehow.
I think Ross has got a reasonable shot if this is all Keating's got in terms of disruption. The problem is he's going to have to ad nauseum. If he has to go off through ad nauseum, he's going to have very little life to work with. We're looking at 5 most likely because he's going to break this delta to get the Thalia off the table this turn.
Now Keating's not sure what to do. Or at least it appears that way. He's got a Tranquil Thicket in hand. We know that. There's a Mox Diamond over there. Ross is just hoping there's nothing going on.
If I'm Keating, I am willing to spend. And see, here I think if I was Keating, I would have just cycled Tranquil Thicket. Because if you find Chalice, if you find Thoughtseize probably, that you can really cement the game. Night of the Reliquary doesn't matter. You still have to kill next turn, and it's not adding any disruption going into Ross's next turn.
Basic Swamp. All righty. We're going to find out what he can do in this spot. Chain of Vapor time. Thalia's got to go. Keating going to take a look at Chain of Vapor. There's a lot of text on that one, but there's nothing for him to sacrifice. I mean, I suppose if he wants to be nice, he could sacrifice and bounce his own Gaddock, but that's not going to happen. Merriam will draw. Brainstorm.
Another thing to keep in mind here is Ross can try to Tendrils. If he's short, he can still pass and hope Confidant kills Keating.
Ooh, I love it.
So another
there are outs. There are outs.
Another thing to keep in mind here.
Yeah.
If he doesn't quite have it all the way, Keating's Confidant can cooperate.
Yeah, back in the tank we go. Might start with a probe.
If Ross is leading off with a probe here, I think it means because he has no intention of trying to go off via ad nauseum. He's only going to try to cantrip up and do what he can with the tendrils in his hand.
Step 1, probe use, storm 1, down to 3. The hand here, there's a Dark Confidant, a Zenith, a Liliana, a Mox, Tranquil Thicket, Thalia.
Nothing to disrupt Ross. He's in the clear other than having to get Galartigue off the table.
And we know he's got an answer. Draw a card. Cabal Ritual. Okay. Brainstorm. Going a little further. Hit 1. Delta's 1. Infernal Tutor is 2. Abrupt Decay is 3. You can see Ad Nauseam already going back, and I think Abrupt Decay doesn't matter. Delta's another mana.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Abrupt Decay, I think, is off the table for this turn because he can get the Teague off the table for 1 mana less.
Yep.
And as I mentioned before, the minute he's leading off with an alternate cast Gitaxian Probe, to me suggests he has no intention of trying to go off via Ad Nauseam.
Now, the way he's situating some mana here, Infernal Tutor can just turn into another ritual effect.
Well, if he has a Dark Ritual, yes. Then he can Dark Ritual, Infernal Tutor show Cabal Ritual, then Cabal Rituals make a boatload of mana.
Yep. Remember, this Brainstorm is spell 2. And now we kind of get into the territory as well of, can he generate enough mana, maybe Infernal Tutor for Dark Petition?
Yep.
Dark Petition, enough mana to be able to cast Tendrils, work your way through some backdoors. Is there ability to say Infernal Tutor for a ritual? All of that stuff starts working its way into the equation now.
Yeah, and the path here for Ross is, if he can get to 10 spells, that's ideal.
Yep.
If he can't, even if he gets a little bit short, if he can get Keating to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, then the Dark Confidant might finish off the game for him.
Now, what we can't forget is that Keating does have a Liliana in his hand. So if it doesn't kill him, he can play Liliana, target himself, and sacrifice Dark Confidant.
Well, I think
if we ever get there.
I think that's all that's happening here is that this game doesn't really get through Keating's upkeep. Either Ross figures out a kill or he doesn't, and there's nothing Ross can really do to prevent lethal from coming across the table.
Sure.
I guess he can Tendrils and gain a bunch of
Tendrils,
life.
yeah, gains the life, yeah.
He can gain a bunch of life.
There's a lot of counting here from Merriam. And this is still him just resolving Brainstorm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the whole tournament right here.
This is it. Now, I am sure he's being asked to pick up the pace of play a little bit here. I imagine maybe a slow play warning has worked itself into the equation now.
I've been here before. I mean, I've had some games in the elimination rounds of these opens where it's been very complicated and I've been asked to make a move. To me, the clear duds in Ross's hand are the Abrupt Decay and the Ad Nauseam.
Those feel like the weakest cards. And now you see he's kind of motioning it out and what he's supposed to do. He knows he hasn't put cards back with Brainstorm just yet. And Tom Keating is waiting here patiently saying, look, either you're dead next turn or you're not.
Right. And now it's also the judge comes into play at this point.
Absolutely.
Which is just, is this person going to compel Ross to play a little bit faster?
Looks like Ross might be keeping Ad Nauseam.
I mean, if he feels like he can't get the storm count up high enough, Ad Nauseam is a path to find cards like Dark Ritual, Lotus Petal, and Lion's Eye Diamond. It's hard for me to imagine that Ad Nauseam ends up being mana efficient most of the time. I mean, you're investing 5. If Ross is overloaded with mana, if he has all the mana in the world to play with, then he can take Ad Nauseam because that's a route to build up the storm count. But he is at 3, so it's pretty likely to kill him.
There's so much math to be done here. This is so hard. But eventually you do have to come to a decision.
Right, because every mixture of cards here is its own path, like ad nauseum or not, or abrupt decay or not.
All right, he's resolved Brainstorm. Dark Ritual, spell 3. Cabal Ritual, spell 4. Excuse me, Infernal Tutor for Cabal Ritual.
So at this point, he's got enough mana left over here where he can both cast Cabal Ritual and Chain of Vapor the Teague off the table.
Yep.
So I'm guessing at this point, Ross's path is make a bunch of mana, get Teague off the table, ad nauseum, hope to find enough cheap stuff to add to the storm count, and use Tendrils to finish off the game.
No, I think he put Tendrils back, yeah? No, it's still there.
Yeah,
Still there.
I think this is the route now.
Yeah, okay.
Well, he's got a Cabal Ritual first, because then... Oh, no, never
No,
mind.
yeah,
He can
this is fine.
do it in either order.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Spell 5. Spell 6. Spell 7. All right, that's 8 mana.
So if he doesn't die, if he finds anything at all here, a Lotus Petal,
A Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual,
Oh my goodness. That's spell 8.
there's a lot of hits and a lot of misses.
He hasn't played a land. He hasn't played a land yet. A land. Oh, down to 1.
Okay, now it's got to, might have to be Petal here.
A non-fetch land is good. No, that's not it. That's gonna do it. Tom Keating is gonna win this match here over Ross Merriam. 2-1. Punishing Abzan is gonna take care of Storm. If Ross is able to find Lotus Petal, non-fetch land, Cabal Ritual first, before Abrupt Decay, Dark Ritual first. Not sure what else. I think Ross wants to know what the top card is. Okay, it's Verdant Catacombs. That wouldn't have done it. If he just tries to Tendrils him out, doesn't do it.
Right, the other route there that Merriam has is build up a bunch of Storm, Tendrils you for down to 3 or 2 or whatever the number is, and hope the Confidant finishes off the job there.